Hey everyone, what's up? This is Zola, and I'm going to attempt to keep this down to like around 10 minutes because I've just done this tutorial and kind of ended up waffling again. So in the interest of keeping everything to around 10 minutes for every day and keeping it bite-sized, I'm going to attempt to go through some of this stuff a bit more concisely. The first thing I'm going to say is that I'm using the latest version of Photoshop, and most of these features will kind of date back to really old versions of Photoshop. It's a program that has evolved more than changed radically over the years, and I will try and point out if there's any new features I'm using. But what I would say is that I would definitely recommend just getting the Adobe Suite. It's £40 a month, and I think if you're kind of intent on learning this stuff, £40 a month really isn't a lot of money. I think if you want to get good at something, you have to kind of invest in yourself, and I really believe that. So I would recommend getting the program. So when you open the program, we're going to get this kind of splash screen. We can open files, we can make a new one. We've got the libraries here, which I'll explain on another day. And then you got your recent files, which is like the recent stuff you've used, and you can access them up here as well. But we're just going to create a new document, and what we're going to be presented with is this dialog. And here you can name the document that you're making. We're making a custom one, but here you have a load of presets which are really useful. So for instance, international paper, you can have A4, A3, blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. And when you make it, it will make a new document at the size of an A4 piece of paper, which is really useful if that's what you're going to be working on. But no, we're going to create something a bit more custom. So I'm going to go here and we're going to hit pixels, because most people know what, like the resolution of their screen, because if you've ever downloaded a wallpaper, you probably need to know. Most screens by now are like 920 by 1200 is probably what the average person is going to be using. The monitor I have here is a 30-inch, and I believe my resolution is more like 1460 by 1440. But the most important thing is that you need to know what you're producing your picture for. And to give you an example, if I was making something for the chain smokers, so if we have a look at the roses artwork, so I'm going to double click here. So I did this artwork for them, and I did it at 4000 by 4000 pixels wide and high, which is absolutely massive. But what that did is, first of all, I knew it needed to be square, because all artwork on Spotify and Apple needs to be square. So we knew it needs to be square, but in terms of the size, I made it at print resolution, which I will explain in a second, and I made it 4000 by 4000, which is huge. But what it gave the guys at Sony a chance to do is actually then use it, quite big, to be able to crop out and make extra banners and stuff for social media. So I would always recommend making something bigger, and then if you need to at the end, you can like scale it down, rather than making something too small and then at the end you will have a nightmare making it bigger, because you can't just scale up an image unless it's all vector, which again I will explain at a later date. So what I'm going to do here is just create something at wallpaper resolution for me. The resolution here is the dots per inch or pixels per inch in your canvas. Now what that means is how much information or detail is in each inch of your piece of paper or whatever you're printing on. So by default, if you're making anything for a screen, so that's going to go on a PC screen, a tablet, or it's going to go on a video, it will be 72 dots pixels per inch. And if you've ever made a video, you don't have this setting in After Effects, because every video is at 72 pixels per inch, so that's useful to know. If, however, you're intending to print out your masterpiece, then you need to change that to 300, and that just gives the file way more detail and color to play with. Well, not color, but detail in terms of the information that's packed into it, and it will just look a lot more crisp when you come to print it. So those are the only two numbers you really need to remember: 72 and 300. Lastly, you got your color mode. Again, there's loads here, but you only really need to know two. RGBs for most of the stuff you're going to be doing. But if you're going to end up printing something, just select CMYK. Now, these will change the way the program works slightly differently. But in essence, CMYK will, when you finish your artwork and you come to print it, you will have less of a shock in terms of how different the colors come out. If you make something in RGB and print it, and when it comes out in a printer, the colors might be quite different, and so you really need to be aware. And again, this is what I said at the start, is about knowing what you're producing your picture for. So I'm just going to leave this at RGB because that's what I do most of the time. And then here you have like how much color information you're going to have. I usually work at 8 or 16. I rarely work at 32, which is float, because not many things need that much color information. Also, the more you come up, the less things, filters in Photoshop work, because they just haven't made filters for that much color information. And same with After Effects actually. So I usually leave that at 8, to be honest. 8 is enough for what we're doing. But yeah, if you're going to come up to 16, I would recommend. But just for this demonstration, I'm going to select 8. And then this right here is pretty pointless because you can change it in the document. So I usually change the background to transparent. And that way, if I want to add a color, I can when I actually open the document. If not, then usually it's good to have a transparent background. And these things here, leave this. So square pixel and working space, just leave those as they are. And I'm just going to leave that there. And there we go. We've created our first document, and it's all very, very exciting. I'm just checking my time here, up to 6 minutes, which is cool. Okay, so this is your document. And what I'm going to do here is come over to this panel. I'm going to explain this panel another day, but we have a little magnifying glass. And then if you drag, you can zoom in and out of your canvas. Now at the moment we are seeing a checkerboard here, and what this means is that anything that we create is going to be transparent. So if I finish this canvas and I place it on something else, so if I did some text, for example, and ended up saving this picture, I could then place this picture on top of another picture, and all this would be see-through. So the only thing we would see would be the text here. So that's quite useful to know. If you want to check your canvas size at any point, you can go up to, I do this with shortcuts. So for me it's Control-Alt-C, or if you're on a Mac it would be Command-Alt-C. So I'm gonna write that here. Command plus Alt plus C, and that will get you your canvas size. And again, if you're on PC, that will be Control. And here you can see the document. So if we go to pixels, we'll see it's still at 2560 by 1440, which is what we created it at. And here you can make it bigger. So if I ended up wanting to make that higher, I go to OK, and now if I zoom out, as we can see, we've got more of a square. And again, if I go back into that menu and make this exactly the same, so 21.67, we've created a perfect square there. So basically, what I'm trying to show you is that everything that you've made in here is changeable within the program, so don't freak out too much about it. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, I'll show you a couple of things with the canvas right now, but we'll get more into this tomorrow. The main thing I'm going to show you is that you can crop the canvas with this useful little tool here, and it's called the crop tool. I usually just hit C on the keyboard, and if we select it, you'll see the bar up here changes to this bar at the top will react to whatever tool you have selected. It's kind of like a really smart bar, which is really cool. So you'll know that whatever you have up here is relating to whatever you're doing here. So it's this kind of like little crossed over L's, I guess. If you hold this down, you'll see that there's more tools in here, but we just want the crop tool, so I'm just going to hit crop tool. And then what you have here is you can do things like rotate the canvas. So if we click, what I'm doing here is dragging outside the area. We can rotate the canvas, so basically just spin our picture around. Or you can go to ratios. You can select specific ratios, so 4:5, 16:9 if you want to change it to that. You can put it in here almost, like 12:12, 20:1, whatever you want. So I'm just going to clear that, and just come back to this, and I'm going to cancel. Oh, I've cropped there. I'm going to undo, but yeah, if you go to the crop tool, you can do it like that, or what I do is I usually just drag, And if you drag, this is the area of the image I'm going to keep whatever's in here. So if I create that there, and if I hold spacebar, I can move this bar around, which is really useful. So say this is all I want in my picture. Once I've made that box, you'll see I will have my little square resolution thing again, and I just hit enter on the keyboard and that's it. I've actually just made my image a hell of a lot smaller, which is cool. If I press C to go back to the crop tool, I'll go back up here. You can actually crop both ways, which is actually really useful. So if I do that and hit enter, I've now made my picture bigger, my canvas bigger again, sorry. And that's the only thing I'm going to show you today, really. Just knowing about the canvas and knowing you can kind of like rotate it and crop it how you want, and also like come back as well and make it bigger. And one thing I would recommend is making sure delete cropped pixels is off, because just to show you this, if I had delete crop pixels on, right, and I cropped this out, and then I'm like, oh, actually I want to make that bigger and bring that back. Fortunately, it's not done it there, and I'm not quite sure why, but if you have this on, you are liable to lose the information that's out here once you've committed to a crop. So just make sure it's always unticked is my only point, or else you might end up like losing some information. As you can see here, it's retaining it. I'm not sure why it didn't retain it earlier, but that's a good thing for us because it means all our information is still there. So I actually know why it's not, and I'm just going to show you real quick. If I create a new layer, ignore what I'm doing here, but let's just make a gradient, and I'm going to create a funky gradient and there, and we're going to like crop this now. So press C, come in, delete crop pixels, hit that. And now if I come out, you'll see we've lost everything that we had out here. And so that is what I wanted to show you. The reason it didn't happen with these is because they're actually still editable almost. But if you have a picture or anything you've painted, then you're going to lose that information if you crop in and then try and crop back out. So basically, long story short, just keep your delete crop pixels thing unchecked. And there we go. That's how to create a new document and how to manipulate your canvas as well. So that's it for day one. Hopefully just get to grips with that, and we'll be back tomorrow to learn some new stuff. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will speak to you soon.